Labor has started explaining how it would pay off debt without privatising assets. Political reporter Chris O'Brien is at Parliament House. Chris, voters now have two very different economic strategies to consider.
Karina, as we've seen for some time now from the Strong Choices document, the LNP would lease assets to pay down debt and build new infrastructure. But Labor won't privatise anything, so it had to come up with another way. We learned today from a speech by the Shadow Treasurer that essentially they would use the profits from income-producing assets to pay down a different debt figure over a different time frame. Labor's also promised to match the LNP's return to surplus next financial year and no new taxes. But the opposition also reckons it could save $150 million a year by merging the power companies. This is a stark contrast in the way the two parties intend to manage the state's assets. The fiscal frontline is now firmly in the sand. Voters already knew Labor would not privatise assets. Now they know what the opposition would do.
Our promises are responsibly targeted to reducing debt and restoring frontline services.
If the ALP is re-elected, the profits of publicly owned port and power assets would be split. 2/3 to pay down debt, 1/3 for general spending.
This will pay down $5.4 billion in general government debt over 6 years and $12 billion of debt over 10 years.
But which debt? The LNP includes the borrowings of the government-owned corporations. It aims to reduce debt from $80 billion to $55 billion in 5 years from asset leases. Labor says the GOCs can look after their own debt. Its starting point is $46 billion, to reduce to $34 billion in 10 years from asset dividends.
Under Labor's plan, we will commence debt pay down in 2015.
The government says if Labor uses the dividends to reduce debt, other needs won't be met.
It's used in the general government sector to meet the costs of employing the teachers, employing the doctors, employing the nurses.
The LNP is giving up the dividends altogether by leasing the assets, although it says the proceeds of privatisation make that worthwhile.
We are seeing two clear and distinct ways to drive down debt, one under the ALP, one under the LNP. The practical difference is that the LNP will probably deliver a AAA credit rating sooner rather than the ALP.
Labor's plan also includes merging Energex, Ergon and Powerlink into a single distribution business, and CS Energy and Stanwell into a single generator.
We welcome the announcement of no forced redundancies into the future, and what this policy does is it keeps Queensland assets in Queensland public hands.
For the Queensland public now to decide. Chris O'Brien, ABC News, Brisbane.